Okay. So welcome everybody to the Green Team Academy podcast. And I'm really excited to be here with you today. I just love Shaina Oliver, and I'm really so happy that we have this chance to talk and that I have a chance to introduce you. And before we go too far, hi, Shaina.
Good morning, Joan. Thank you for inviting me for this chat this morning.
Yeah, so nice to be with you. Yeah, the reason I wanted to bring Shaina on is because she brings such a beautiful perspective of all these different parts and pieces of her and of her experience and of ways that we can all, I think, kind of do better. And so before we get started, so Shaina is an organizer with Moms Clean Air Force. But Shaina, before we talk about that, I wanted to talk a little bit about your own experience with breathing and just kind of how you came to this work. So we'll talk about the Moms Clean Air Force stuff in a minute, but a little bit more about you and, how you grew up and how, kind of what led you to this.
All right. Thank you. I think it's very important to have these conversations. And like Joan said, I am field organizer with Moms, but before all that, I am a tribal affiliate with the Navajo Nation, also known as the Dene Nation, and which is often the Four Corners area of New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado. And that is where the Navajo people were led to for the reservation after the long walk. I always say that I don't no longer know my language because I didn't have that privilege to grow up knowing that language, my own native language. And so I introduced myself as being a descendant of genocide of the Indian Removal Act, but known to the Dene people as the Long Walk of the Navajo. And it's within this that the policies that the world that we truly live in as Indigenous people, we have laws that still exist as the Indian Removal Act was enforced on us over 100 years ago. And we were forced out of Colorado, along with many other tribes were forced out of Colorado that are not acknowledged on these lands. And there's many Indigenous natives that are not acknowledged and are not federally acknowledged on our native lands, and were excluded. And this long history of being excluded from these spaces, we assume that we're not allowed to go into these spaces like the Capitol or the legislator's office or these commissioner and council members. We feel like we're not allowed there, and we forget that how long it's been since these generational traumas have inflicted this pain on us to feel that we're not allowed to go in these spaces and speak up about the issues with clean air, clean water, and the quality of our lands. So for me, I've been displaced all my life. I've been living in Denver, Colorado for these last 20 years. And growing up, for me, it has always been very conservative. We've always had to be mindful of the waste that we had in our homes, as well as what we bought. So if you had a plastic bag, we would never throw away that plastic bag, even before it was bags. My grandmother used to always keep every plastic container that she bought until it was no longer usable. So you'll find like they said on the radio, when they talk about these type of things, like you'll find you're in the refrigerator looking for whipped cream and you open and it's spaghetti. It's just things that we've always done even prior, before colonization, of being mindful of your mess and not leaving your mess behind. That was a big thing for Indigenous people, to not be leaving their living stuff behind, and not to leave trash behind, and to leave it as you found it was always a rule of the thumb for just like when you go camping. Those rules always applied to not just be leaving your stuff, and it's basically neglect of your responsibility and the things that you encompass. And I think that just really stuck with me on the conservativeness of like the wastefulness. And not only that, my mom used to have a big thing about air. So she didn't like it when I would put the tops on the bottles and it was empty. She would say, take the tops off so the air can escape. And growing up, we didn't really have that structure of believing every element has like a sacredness. I didn't get that until like I grew up a little bit older. And on the healing side, of the medicine side of my family, I think that really is the aspect of acknowledging all elements in life. And like even the rock is a sacred life. And maybe like, what did that rock do to you for you to kick it out of nowhere? Stories like that. And I think it's just a reflection of like internal generation knowledge, that to respect to respect things in your life. And that goes along with the materials that we associate with. And I think that kind of led into my work with Mom's Clean Air Force eventually, which came a long ways because I am a mother of 4 and I am a young mother. And it wasn't easy coming down this path because it's so easy to get it. I have an accounting degree, and you're pressured to work in oil and gas as a Native person. You are pressured in every form, whether you're uneducated or educated. You're eventually kind of pulled to go support the oil and gas companies and doing their accounting for them as well, but also helping them extract our resources out of our lands. And as well, we're forced to aid in the destruction of Mother Earth. And it's sad to see that we don't see that as a problem. But that just goes to show how deep the racist agenda in our policies, laws, and regulations go. It's very deep in these laws, and we need to recognize that if we want to see change. And if we want to see change, we got to go. We got to go to these spaces and feel uncomfortable and make our voices heard. Because I didn't know I could go walk up in the Capitol and speak to representatives and tell them that I have a concern about what they're doing, or I support this environmental bill because it would protect 7 generations and beyond. So we need to be more courageous in speaking up, and not to hold back on speaking up because it's not what you believe in, is doing the right thing. Because the next 7 generations, they're inexistent right now, but we want them to have a sustainable future. We want them to be able to drink water and be able to breathe. And we know right now we need to heal our lands, and And by doing that, we need more voices showing up at these public hearings at the Oil and Gas Commission. Colorado's Oil and Gas Commission is their registration open today for public comment, and they don't notify people when these are open, and they don't notify you that you're invited to register either. So
Yeah, let's talk a bit more about that. But before we do, I mean, I think that you just said so much. There's so much so many really important things that you just said, and I think number one is that thing of being a survivor, a descendant of genocide, and I think this is the reason a lot of the environmental movement hasn't worked in the past is because it's been very surface oriented and hasn't really gotten to the deeper, this is all the systemic stuff that is now white people are starting to understand, like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. I guess they wouldn't have put that factory or that highway through the golf club community, and that's why they went through this other community. And so starting to see a lot of those, the systemic racism, the white supremacy, the colonization, that its kind of long tail is still very much with us. And also, as you were saying, like the loss, I think that's why it's like so urgent for us now to figure out how to get Indigenous voices lifted up, because as you were saying, like losing access to your own language, to all the wisdom that we know gets passed in a language, and then having to go relearn that and go find that, that's a big loss. And it's also something that means that we can be working to support, how do we bring that information back. And the other thing I think that you said, Shaina, is that you personally have asthma or had.
yes, I actually was diagnosed with asthma as an infant, and I was born in the mid '80s, so I've heard a lot that the pollution was really horrible during during the '80s, like it is right now. And I think because a lot of those environmental bills, like the Clean Air Act, just got passed, so a lot of those rules weren't implemented until like 20 years later. It made it, you notice the difference when those acts are in place. And now that we see that this administration took away our clean are attacking our Clean Air and Clean Water Acts, we're seeing we're seeing drastic changes in our environment. Here in Colorado, it was in an article in either last year or 2 years ago that our air was worse than Beijing, and these not only these rules are not only benefit everybody, but it's a complete attack on Indigenous sovereignty when they are attacking these clean air and water acts, because people don't really realize that Indigenous tribal governments and communities, they fought for these regulations to be in place, and then now they're being stripped away by this administration because of the interest of taking more. They want more of our lands, and that's always been a thing that natives have to be forced to live with, is that they keep taking more and more and more. And it seems like we don't have a right. They don't allow us the right to tell them no. And it's almost like it's an abusive relationship. And when your abuser doesn't get what no means, it's rape on our Mother Earth. And when an abuser doesn't know to stop, what do? You have to contain it at some point. So what we can do is show up at your political leader's office and tell them you want them to work for the community. You want them to protect our children's future and protect and support these clean air and water policies that have been followed for the last 30, 40 years. And
so before we get into that, Shaina, will you tell us a little bit about what Mom's Clean Air Force is?
Yes.
For those who don't know.
Yes, I didn't know what Mom's Clean Air Force was until KGNU. They were on that radio and they were at the Capitol saying that they had moms down at the Capitol, and I think they had free lunches too. And it was just me and my little one, who was 4 at the time. So he didn't have full day school. So we had nothing to do. I had nothing to do. I was done with my semester of school for that time. And I think spiritually, I knew that I needed to be involved in something. And Mom's Clean Air Force sounded like a fun name and a fun group to be a part of. So I went and checked it out. And it was a diverse group of moms. And there was an older lady holding up a baby that was a toy baby. And she was saying, "What's important?" And she held up the baby and she said, "The children, or these babies, are important." And I just loved that, like how welcoming they were and engaging they were, and how they promote little leaders to be welcome in these spaces and say you can talk to these people and make it feel like it's normal that you can talk to these people like a human being. And if they can't see you as a human being, then we got robots working for us. But Moms Clean Air Force is a national organization of over 1 million moms nationwide in all 50 states. And Colorado here, we have over 43,000 members, and that's almost climbing to 44,000 members. So keep signing up, Colorado. I think with my dreams, it led me to Moms Clean Air Force, and my envision with women is that we move forward we have to be able to move forward, and we have to heal too. We have to heal. A part of that healing is removing the illfulness through our minds. It's like the emoji says, like, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And then there's the internal part that we have to work on. The internal part is the most challenging, because you are trying to walk with all your heart, and it's really hard in this world to work without contention or without being offended by disrespect. So
what do
these women
actually do? Like, if somebody signs up to be a member of Mom's Clean Air Force, like, what is the...
Well, they'll start notifying you and telling you, are you able to come join us at the EPA hearing, or there's a hearing on a legislation that is for like an environmental policy for clean air, like the Air Quality Control Commission. They have the responsibility of enforcing regulations on industries, on air, and those are the type of places that we have to get to know the committee members as well as the commissioners. So there's different departments in that. So that's a branch off of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment that the Air Quality Control Commission works under, which is a state-run organization. And those are the areas that you would look for if you want to participate in protecting your air or your water. Right now, the most uncomplicated way to support is through the Clean Air commission, and I think it's very it's not very easy for everybody to participate in these public comments, because it's either in the morning or it's in the evening, and then people are kind of I know a lot of families are busy, so I know is really difficult, and that's why we also encourage written comments to be sent in to these organizations, because they always take written comments as well if you're unable to be present for a oral public comment.
So how does it work? I mean, you know, I guess because you've already done it, you know the process, but I'm sure that there's people that are listening that are thinking, okay, well, I really care about clean air. You know, maybe somebody in my family has asthma, or I'm aware of the environmental justice issues, and yet they're kind of intimidated to actually do this. So how does Mom's Clean Air Force kind of help bridge the gap between,
I think creating your story,
I'm afraid?
I think the one thing is to start creating your story, and first maybe writing down your story, and then speaking, and then practicing your speech on that. Like, first is introduction, who you are, where you live. Not like, you don't have to specifically give your address. It's not necessary. I have seen people tell their address when it's not necessary for you to state your address. It's actually more, I think it's very dangerous and unnecessary to publicly say your address. So it's not necessary. Just say broadly who you are and where you're from, and maybe like the neighborhood if it is impacted with oil and gas. Those three main things are very important, is like outlining your story, where you're from, and then why is it important to you? Why is this important to you? What for me, what I say is important to me is that Indigenous people have the highest rates in asthma, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, leukemia, along with mental illness, adverse birth outcomes, and premature deaths than like the general population. Where like my family, we can check off on a lot of those things on the reservation. I myself can check off a lot of those things. I was born premature and low birth weight, and later diagnosed with asthma, and that has to do with like the developed by air pollution, because ground ozone, smog, pollution is very detrimental to developing lungs. So if you got a child out there, a baby too, on top of that, being exposed to raw air that we're being allowed to breathe, it's very detrimental to the developing lungs of babies. So that's probably why I got diagnosed with asthma, because of the high pollution during that time. So I can't imagine what babies are going through right now in the state of Colorado, because we have the worst air quality right now, and we're probably above 10, ranking number 10 now. We're probably above that now. So it's about creating your story, stating who you are, why it's important, and then stating your main ask. What do you want them to do? Like, do you want them to support this Clean Air Act, or for example, or something else of increased air monitoring in the communities? But
it seems like Mom's Clean Air Force will kind of help you figure out, okay, here's the hearing, or here's the comment, here's what we're advocating for, and then you have the opportunity to, as you said, tell it from your point of view, saying,
yeah, the main important part is having your speech down and having your story ready for these legislators, and before you go to their office, because these people don't give you no more than 2 minutes of their time, and in the office, you're probably given about that much time, especially if you come in a group, you have to split your time. So so these hearings are cut down to 2 minutes for regular people like myself, and for a person that has asthma, it's really hard to get all those words in under 2 minutes without going over. And I go over all the time because it's hard for me to speak. And so don't let your speech challenge you and not speaking up, because from my experience, it's always been tough to speaking up. I didn't grow up with that structure to speak up and speak out. And my family, they're not environmentalists. We didn't grow up as environmentalists. We just grew up, I just grew up around a lot of conservative things because money meant the cost of everything. And to disregard the work that went behind there was just known as disrespectful. And I think we live in a time where we've forgotten that, and we got careless. And not only careless, it's just that the abundance that they were throwing at us in plastic gear, and we didn't do enough to stop it, I guess. But now we have that chance, and now that we're aware, and if you become aware, that's when it's important to start speaking up on these issues, especially like plastic is a big one, since oil and gas exports like 90%, over 80% of the oil and gas demand outside of the country. So that oil and gas is not being produced for us, it's being produced for plastic. And do we need more plastic?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I had my dad was actually a petroleum engineer. And I remember talking to him going, wait a minute, what's going on here? And when I graduated from college, a lot of the people hiring were also Defense Department, oil and gas. And yeah, you really have to, as you said, be courageous, be aware, go that extra mile to not just kind of go with the flow and be in a place where you're working against your values. And it's, as you said, it's really hard. It's just coming at you from all different directions, and you have to keep bringing yourself up. And I think what you said too is that really at the root of it is transforming. It's this personal transformation. And so I love that about Mom's Clean Air Force, that you're supporting women such as young mothers like yourself, Dene women, anybody that wants to go to that, take it to that next level, to stand up for your kids, for your community, for Mother Earth. And so Shaina, is the main thing what's the main way that people should get involved? If they're interested, they're like, yes, I want to be part of this. What should they do?
You know what? I signed up with Mom's Clean Air Force. I wasn't doing public comments at first. I've been working with Mom's Clean Air Force for the last 4 years, but I've only been doing field organizer work this past year. So it doesn't just come naturally. You have to kind of like grip with it and gear yourself. And I think Mom's Clean Air Force were just so very encouraging of my story. And I think having I didn't have a lot of support, so don't be afraid if you don't have a lot of support in your family. Because as a young woman, I was looked to just go find a job and stick to that job and keep your nose out of things that will get you into trouble. So don't be afraid to just speak up and write down what you have to say before you say it, and then work on it from that way. And over time, you'll get your story together. And I think when I signed up with Mom's Clean Air Force, it was just basically I'm able to support the petitions that they had, and supporting petition was my main outlet of supporting these environmental movements. And then every year there's lobby time. So at the beginning of the year, they have lobby time around February and the end of January. I don't know what it is in your state, but get to know when those lobby days are for legislators. Look into, see what environmental organizations are supporting, and then as well as Mom's Clean Air Force will co-support with other organizations like Conservation Colorado is a one, and then along with Wild Earth Guardians is another. And then I have worked with 350 Colorado. They're good about lobbying on all issues. Moms does mainly works on federal issues, so we kind of target federal leaders on making change. I live in 5.5 miles from Suncor Refinery, and that's a federal issue. We have to attack that federally. So Moms kind of handles everything federally, and along with supporting like the environmental legislation changes in the state. So
yeah, so basically, I just want to wrap it up here. So basically, if somebody's interested, they want to become more of a leader, don't worry about how exactly you're going to do it. Just sign up with Mom's Clean Air Force. They're going to give you the information, and you work on your story. And then it sounds like you'll be alerted of opportunities to either submit it in writing or show up in person. And I'm sure that you can reach out to Shaina. And
we always have events where you can take personal involvement, and I think that's where you can get your outlet out, is when these events become available, like open registration for Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission open today, so you can register with them and sign up for public comment for flaring, which is basically a detrimental methane gas that is very detrimental to climate change, and like over 86 times more potent to climate change, because just blatant assault on our environment, basically. And those are actions we can take, and you can email me at soliver@Moms Clean Air Force and reach out. I am having like discussion chats every other Sunday, so it'll be not this coming Sunday but the following Sunday. But we have these chats that we have now. Now it's about climate social justice discussions, so you can join me on there.
Nice.
Reach out to Mom's Clean Air Force. You can find me on Mom's Clean Air Force Colorado site.
And I just put that link in the chat as well. All right. Okay.
Thank you, Joan. It was
nice.
nice.
Yeah, I know we only have 30 minutes to chat, and there's so much cool stuff that you're doing, but I think this is really neat to see your example, Shaina, of, as you said, a young mom coming from a family that wasn't used to speaking out and speaking up. And I think a lot of us came from that similar thing, and just like, get a job, take care of your family, vote, maybe go to church or something. But that wasn't enough. That's what the previous generations did, and that's what led to this. And once we understand how government works, that the government works for us, and it's not until we voice our opinion. So like you said, that responsibility, we have that responsibility to jump in and be vocal at whatever level we can and whatever issue we're passionate about. So this is really great. So thanks for all the work you're doing, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, and have a great morning and the rest of your day.
All right. Thanks so much. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.